Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey and this is a knitty yarny podcast from the southwest of France. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this new episode. I hope you're all doing very well. Thank you so much for your New Year well wishes on the latest episode. You may notice that my voice is slightly off. I'm very sorry, I'm a bit sick. It's okay, I'm getting out of it. It's just a standard cold. It's just still a little bit nosy voice. So I'm gonna drink lots of water and hopefully we'll get through it okay. It's also very early in the morning still and there's not much light, so artificial light, hooray. So yeah, the sound and lighting show isn't quite up to the task today, but hopefully, I don't know why I just got such a British accent out of nowhere, sorry. Anyway, I have quite a lot of things to share with you this week. I just recorded the French podcast and I spoke for like an hour and a half. I just went on rants about everything. So I'm gonna try to be a little bit more organized for you guys. I have a new design to present to you. I have a finished object that I'm wearing. I have a work in progress, and I will also talk about spinning at the end of the episode. So let's go. You can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below. So if you want to skip anything, feel free to look at that and jump ahead. I also put links to everything that I talk about, as well as my social media. I am Yarnflakes everywhere. And my patterns for sale on Ravelry and Payhip and my Patreon page. So yeah. Let's start with a new design that I have just published, and it's something that you have seen already back in December. I believe I showed you the first one because it's a sock design. And so these are the Himalia socks, and so they're slippers-like socks. So they are knitted with Tuku wool sock, which is a sport weight yarn. So you do need a sport to decay yarn. They are socks that are meant to be worn with either no ease or just a little bit of positive ease, so that they're comfy socks that you keep in the house or that you're really wearing over other socks or tights. So they are knitted cuffed down, and on the leg they feature this leaf texture motif, which is really easy to do. The pattern includes a video tutorial where I show you how to do it step by step. So it's really easy. Basically, you pull a bunch of loops and then you pass the loops over. You can do it with a crochet hook if that's more comfortable for you. You'll get a feel for it. It's very intuitive. But yes, the pattern explains to you how to do it. It's very simple. There are written instructions. Basically, they're only done on 3 rounds. So you knit until the top point of the leaf, and the leaf is actually created just in 1 round here. So it's just 3 rounds of the patterning, and there are written instructions, and I also put charts for each size where you can see how they are placed. So on the design, they are placed in a triangle like this all around the leg, but there are the charts so you can sort of visualize it better, and maybe if you want to put them any other way, you can easily do that too. So really easy. Then you knit the leg until the desired length. As often in my sock patterns, there are 2 heels to choose from, so you can knit a heel flap and gusset, traditional one, or you can use a German short row heel like the one I did here. I tend to prefer short row heels for slippers socks because the heel flap and gusset does fit me better, but since this has a bit of positive ease and is just really meant to be slipped on, I kind of like the feel and the look of the short row heel here. But you have the other one to choose from if you prefer. And then the rest of the sock is just stockinette, and you have a pointed toe. So it's a really easy pattern, and I really do enjoy socks in the thicker yarn. So I do plan to make more of them. And yeah, there are various things that you can do. You're gonna see that some of my testers used a contrast color to make the leaves. That's really fun. It's really easy, like I said, since the leaf is only created over one round. Basically, you would just need to slip the stitches and make the leaf in the contrast color, and that would be really easy. As far as yarn choices go, like I said, I use Tukuwo sock, which is the one that has nylon in it. So it's a finish wool with nylon, and I find it less dry than Tukuwo fingering, so it's a bit more soft and fluffy, nylon probably. And it's a really nice yarn. It blooms well, and it's knitted at a tight gauge because they're socks after all, but it's still a really nice comfy fabric, and they're super warm. And I'm really happy to be able to show them to you, because now I'm going to be able to wear them for the rest of the winter. But yes, so as far as yarn substitutions go, you can use fingering weight and mohair together if you like that. Some of my testers did it, and it works pretty well. You can use alpaca blends if you like. If you do use a pure alpaca wool, make sure that the one you choose is either decay, or maybe knit a size bigger, but make sure your gauge is super tight because alpaca needs to be contained. But yeah, anything with fluff if you like, or rustic wool. I have a bunch of Sandnes Perfect, which is their DK weight sock yarn, so it's wool and nylon, and it just arrived in a bunch of French shops here, and I really find it interesting, and I bought a few colors because I really like it, and I kind of plan to make a ton of DK socks because I like them, and it feels like there's not a lot. So yeah, Himalia basically. I hope you like them. As usual, they are 15% off on Ravelry for the release with the code Himalia. Himalia, if you didn't know, is one of Jupiter's moons. I just thought it looked nice. It's not. There's not such a cohesive story behind the name. It just sounded good, I guess. But yeah, so it's 15% off on Ravelry. I'm gonna let it run for the week, so until Sunday. And my patterns are also available on my PayHip store, where they are cheaper than on Ravelry. This is my way to sort of try to provide a solution for people who are more on a budget. Not everyone is always in a position where they can afford the luxury of buying a knitting pattern, but it doesn't mean that you don't want to. So on my PayHip store, my patterns are about 20 to 25% less than on Ravelry. So if you're on a budget, if you want to get a pattern but you can't afford it at the full price, it's totally fine. It's still the right price for me. It's still don't worry about that. It's just a way for me to make sure that you have access to things as well, no matter your current situation. And the thing is, on PayHip, the price is adjustable, so it's good if you're on a budget, and it's a minimum price. So if you want to change it and maybe support me a bit more, if you want to put it like 10,000 euros, feel free to do so. Don't. Yeah. So that's a convenient tool about PayHip. And every time I say something stupid like this, someone is bound to do it, so don't. What was I saying? This is the type of thing that I started saying in the French podcast, and it just lasted an hour and a half of nonsense like this. But yeah, Himalia. is now available, and I think I've said enough. So now I'm going to talk to you about my finished project, which is the cardigan that I'm wearing. And this is also a design of mine. This is the Tarayuela cardigan, which is a pattern that was published in September in collaboration with Anna from Lana et Tricot, which is she's the owner of a French yarn shop. And basically, we released it in September, so it's available on Ravelry and on Payhip as well. And the whole design idea was Anna's, so she wanted this shape, this cable, everything, and I made the pattern for her and graded it. So it's a top-down raglan, and it has these really simple arrow sort of cable that are really easy to do. You don't really need to look at the chart when you're making them. You're making the bottom bands at the same time. It's a cropped cardigan, and it has bracelet length sleeves. And so I started knitting this in the summer, and it just took me a while to finish it, but I'm really happy that I did, because I really do like it. And so I did a few adjustments compared to how I imagined the pattern, because I made the pattern to fit Anna's ideas. And Anna, she has a different, she has a different body type, and she has a different needs than mine. And so it's quite funny how with simple tweaks I was able to make this a bit different enough to be more my taste. And it's really interesting. Basically, I knitted the size up. So the original pattern calls for little ease, like 5-ish centimeters minimum. I usually go for 10-ish because that's how comfortable I am. So I basically took a size up, and this means that I have a bit more ease on the body, that my raglan is a bit lower, reasonably though. I also put on a bit of weight since I started knitting it, so and it got on my arms mostly, and so it's quite it's a bit forced in the sense that I started knitting it, and as I was knitting it, so I put on weight, and in the end the choices that I made back then are really helpful now that I put on just a little bit of weight, and so I have a bit extra centimeters to work around. And so for example, in the original pattern the sleeves are really fitted. Now my arms, no matter the weight I am, they really don't change much around until the elbow. Basically, well, even when I'm like more muscular or anything, the size of my arm is roughly the same all around, and so I only need to decrease from the elbow down, unless the sleeves are really wide, of course. But here they're rather fitted here, and I started decreasing only here. So that's another modification that I made. And I made the body longer, because like in most of my patterns, the length that I give when it's completely adjustable is really just a middle estimation, because you can be taller, you can be shorter, you can want it longer or shorter. And so I always say in my pattern, the length that you will add after with the hem, with the ribbing. So the pattern will say knit to about this, but 10 centimeters less than the desired length. So that way you know how to adjust it. So I adjusted it for me because it's a cropped cardigan. But something with wearing cropped garments is my waist is pretty high. So my waist is here, like the smallest part of me is about here, and my belly button is here. So it's like there's more than 5 centimeters between my waist and my belly button, and so I have a relatively long waist to hip, and The thing is, so it's good if I'm wearing a dress, etc., no problem. But if I want jeans or pants, they're never high-waisted enough. I can't find jeans that have a rise that's high enough. Usually, the most high-waisted pants, they barely cover my belly button, if at all. And so I still have a good 5 centimeters to go until my waist. So when I knit a crop garment, if I do it really cropped and stop at my waist, then I have all of this free space. And sometimes whenever you talk about cropped garments, a lot of people say that it's not for them because they don't want to show their belly. I'm like, I don't want to show my belly either. It's cold. You know, I don't want to go around and just have the wind on my belly button. That's not a thing. Maybe teenagers do that. That's how they wear crop tops, but I don't. And so, a lot of people, what they do is that they wear over dresses, over high-waisted pants if it works for them. Or I've seen people, which I found really cool, they wear shirts, like long shirts under, like button-down shirts, basically. And so they have their cropped little thing, and under you can see and on top here you can see the button-down shirts, and that's really cool. So yeah, the goal is not to have my belly or yours outside in the wind and catch cold. So I had to make it a bit longer because I did want to be able to wear this with jeans as well. So yeah, this is some of the modifications that I did. And that's about it. The yarn that I used is the same yarn that we used for the design, which is Ma Petite Laine, which is a French indie dyer. And this is her Breton, so from Brittany, yarn. Because it's made with pure French wool from Brittany, sheep breeds, and it's a really, really nice wool. It's dry, but it's not. It plumps up so much. It's a fingering weight. Like, it has 400 meters to 100 grams. I think I used like 2 and a little bit of the third skein for this. It's a really good deal in a sense, because you really don't need a lot of yarn because it has a fingering weight meterage to 100 grams, but you can knit it at a DK weight gauge with no problem, and it really makes a fabric that's dense enough. And this is the Maro color, which is like a sort of iced brown chestnutty thing. Sometimes it looks a bit purplish, sometimes it looks a bit grey. It's really nice. Yes, so I'm really happy that I finished it because I get to wear it now that the season calls for it. And I'm really happy. I believe I've said everything. I put these buttons, and as you can see, I didn't measure well. So of course the buttonholes are placed properly, but I think this button is just way too low. It should be here. And so I'm not that bothered. I usually wear my cardigans open anyway, and it doesn't distort it too much. It just makes a little bump in one place, but it still lays flat, so that's fine. But yeah, I can't measure. When I showed you I was hesitating between 2 types of buttons. The other one were really shiny metallic ones. In the end I chose these ones because they're just blending a little bit better with the color, I feel. And I just think it looks really good. So Tarayuela is available on Lana Tricot's Ravelry. It's in English and in French, and it's on my Payhip store as well. So yes, that's it for my finished project. I'm sorry, I'm trying to go a bit fast because I don't have much time today. So yeah, I'm moving on to my next work in progress, which is a new one. I registered for a test knit because why not? So I'm doing test knit for Nadia Crétin-Lechen, NCL Knits, which is a designer from Switzerland. Chocolate and watches. I Sorry. I really like her designs. I like what she does, and I almost asked to test. She just released a really beautiful colorwork sweater with like a geometric yoke with tiny motifs, and it's really beautiful. I think it's called Pita. And when she did call for testers, I almost asked if I could participate, but I just really didn't have the time then. It was not reasonable, and apparently now it's more reasonable for some reason. And she asked for testers for a V-neck cardigan with a cable panel down the front, and I love it. And it is knitted in Gilliatt from Der Rum Natura, and I have a lot of their yarns because they're very local to me, and I really like their yarn. They're very versatile yarns. So if you don't know, so this is Gilliatt especially, which is the worsted weight. So it has a DK weight meterage. It has 250 meters to 100 grams. But I personally find that it's way too tight if you knit it above 20 stitches per 10 centimeter. It's like the fabric is way too dense. So I like to knit it at a worsted weight gauge, 18, 19 stitches. So that is what the cardigan is at. It's a woolen spun French non-superwash merino. So it's good for color work, I like it for color work. It makes a fabric that's smooth enough. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. And it's not perfect because it's a 3-ply. And the fact that it has these two characteristics, it's woolen span, but it's a 3-ply, it means it works for everything, because like I said, it's okay in color work and it's okay in textures as well. So if you don't know, the plies in the yarn, they don't just dictate the thickness of the yarn. Sometimes you will see brands, they have a 2-ply, then 3, then 4. It makes it thicker, maybe. Not necessarily always, but it also changes the structure of the yarn. If you have a 2-ply, so you have just two, imagine these are yarns, you have a 2-ply and you look at it like this, it's more flat, right? You see? It's more an oblong thing. And flat yarns, like 2-plies, a little bit like singles, they look flat. So they're really good for lace because they tend to spread, just stay like this, and they're really good for color work as well. This is why Jamieson's and Smith's etc. is a 2-ply, because it just stays flat and really makes a smooth drawing in one dimension. But if you have a 3-ply, then you have 3 and it's round, and if it's round, then it just bounces up. It makes like a 3D effect. And this means that even though I'm using a very dark yarn, this is the Merlot colorway, which is a really, really dark burgundy. It's absolutely gorgeous. I have just enough, I think, to make the cardigan, and I need to buy another bowl because I want to use it in another design with other colors, but it's out of stock. It's always out of stock. I think people love that color way too much. So I just subscribed to be notified when it's back in stock, if it ever is. But it's very dark, and I bought it originally to design something with it, but I just couldn't find the right thing. And so when I saw the cardigan that Nadia was looking to test, and I had this yarn, and I thought, I think it's going to be okay. And indeed, because it's a 3-ply, you can still see the cables really well, because it makes shadows, especially here in these holes. So the cables still pop even though the yarn is super dark, and that's really nice. So the test is not secret, so I can show you a little bit, but I'm still keeping it a bit of a suspense. So it's a raglan cardigan. You do a provisional cast on the neck, you do the raglan, and then you increase at the front. You have charts for every size for the front panels, which is really good. And then you have a main chart for the body. So I already split body and sleeves, and now I'm on the body. And the main chart is like 8 rows, and every wrong side row is a plain row, so you just knit the knits, purl the purls, so it's really easy to do. The cables themselves are really fun and simple, and it's just really smooth sailing, and I just really love that color, right? That's amazing. And I think I'm going to finish this bowl, and then I'm going to knit the sleeves. So I'll try to guess how long I can make the body with that, and then have left still some yarn left to do the button band, because then you pick up on the edge and you do the neckband basically with the buttons. I have some buttons options. You need like big buttons. I have some possibilities. I just need to see what fits best. I'll see at the end. But yeah, it's really fun. It's really easy, and yeah, just enjoying it. I think the pattern will be released at the end of February or mid-February, because the deadline is on the 18th. It's called Ferndell. I don't know how to say it. And yeah, so that's my current works in progress, and that's it for the knitting content. I'm going to talk now about spinning. And so this is where everything went wrong in the French podcast, and I started talking about pretty much everything besides the point. But yes, so I have picked up spinning again. So I have been spinning for quite a long time now, and I was surprised because I actually scrolled all the way back to the beginning of my Instagram, and do not do that. And the first post I could see with a spindle and me talking about spinning, it was in January 2016, and it was not the first time I was spinning. So I think I started spinning in the autumn before that, so that was 5 years ago. And yeah, I really like spinning with the spindle. It's fun, I like the tool, I like that I can do it standing up, but it tends to hurt me. It tends to sort of give me elbow pain, and I tried to do it a bunch of different ways. But the thing is, if I wanted to make yarn in a good enough quantity that I could knit with it, it just wasn't convenient, because I had to spin for a very short time, and I couldn't do it long enough to be able to spin a good enough quantity, and so it wasn't working. And so I decided back then that I would try and save money. I would wait and save money to buy a wheel, because wheels are expensive, and so that's what I've been doing for years now. And in the meantime, I bought, I think it was 2 years ago, I participated in a crowdfunding for the electric eel wheel, which is a miniature electric wheel, which is really cute and working, and I have been using it a little bit. But the thing is, I don't necessarily think electric wheels are for me, at least not in my learning stage of working with a wheel. Oh, by the way, I looked up, because so you can have electric spinning wheels, right? And I thought they were much more expensive than that. But actually, the Ashford e-spinner is not much more expensive than a standard wheel. I was quite surprised by this and happy, because this means that if you can't have a spinning wheel where you need to straddle because you have mobility issues, then the electric wheels are okay and are a possibility, which is really cool. But the miniature electric wheel I had, even though it's really cute and it's working perfectly, you don't have that much leverage with the motor speed. And so it was going too fast for me, and I constantly felt like I was fighting the motor, and it wasn't smooth. And yeah, it just comforted me in the idea that I did need I did want and would work better with a wheel, a regular threadling wheel. I would work with a mill. If you have a mill and you want to give it to me, just feel free. But anyway, so yeah, I've been saving money because it's a budget. And last year I was able to make my choice, and so I got the Kromsky Sonata. And I'm going to explain a little bit why I chose it, because maybe that's interesting to some people who are looking to get a wheel. I had some criteria, the main ones being that I wanted 2 threadles, because I thought, like, the point of it, right, is that I can't spin with a spindle because it hurts me. So if I'm like threadling with one side of my body, I know there's ways around it, but I knew I would be much more comfortable body-wise with 2 pedals. So 2 threadles, not pedals. Can you say pedal? We say, yeah, because we say pedal in French. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted 2 pedals thingy. I wanted, the second thing was that I wanted it to look like a wheel because the cheapest wheel on the market, which are actually amazing wheels, and I've read spinners that have years and years of experience and they use them, wheels like the Kromsky Fantasia or the Louette wheel. I think it's the S10 or the S17, I don't know, but basically the 2 cheapest wheels that you can find. They're already amazing wheels from what I've heard, but I really don't like the look of them. For the Louette, the wheel is just a plain disc, and the Fantasia, it has an S, and it's just not the look that I want. I was thinking, like, if I'm putting so much money in that thing, might as well have it look the way I want and just wait a few more years. But yeah, so I wanted it to look like a wheel. So basically my choices were between the Kromsky Sonata and the Kiwi 3 from Ashford. Both of them are foldable. The Kiwi 3 is now foldable, which is amazing. I wanted something foldable. Both of them are 2 pedals, both of them look really cool. And so the reason I chose the Kromsky, and they're very equivalent. The Kiwi 3 is much cheaper though, so that's really good. So I was pondering my possibilities. I chose the Kromsky one for a few reasons. One being the height of the orifice. So when you're spinning, you're putting the yarn in the hole, right? And it stands at a certain height, and the Kromsky, the Sonata one, is higher, and it's adjustable also than compared to the Kiwi 3. Maybe you can fiddle something, but the base thing is higher because the wheel is a bit bigger. And so the thing is, I sat on the chair that I would be spinning in, and I just measured and checked where I was comfortable, because the goal was really to just be relaxed and be in a comfortable position, because I didn't want to induce pain again while doing something that I loved. So the Kromsky height fitted better, because I know some people have to buy a specific chair that's at the right height so that they can spin. Like, yeah, no, I couldn't do that. And so that was one thing. The other thing was that the wheel ratios were a bit more to my liking on the Kromsky. So if you don't know, a wheel has what's called ratios, which basically it's the speed at which the thing spins, if you want something very basic. And so the faster it goes, the more twist there is, and so the thinner the yarn you can make, and the slower it goes, the more you can make a good thicker yarn. Most wheels, they have separate equipment that you can buy that will add more possibilities. So you can have an equipment to spin faster and an equipment to spin bigger yarns. But the basic ratios on the Kromsky Sonata were a bit better for me. They were a bit more to the quickest ones, because I thought might as well get the one that will be the most versatile for the type of yarn that I want to spin. And I know I mostly want to spin thin eventually, once I get good enough. But yeah, so that was the other thing. And then there are both Scottish tensions, so that's the same thing. So a wheel, right? It has a flyer that spins. That's what sort of puts the twist in the yarn. And then on the flyer you have the bobbin, and the bobbin spins as well with the flyer. And the thing is, if they both spin at the same time, then the yarn is not winding onto the bobbin, and you just get twists and twists. And you need to have two different speeds so that the yarn is dragged into. It's like a mechanical thing. Yay, science. And so you have two ways of making sure that the flyer and the bobbin don't spin at the same speed, but that one spins faster than the other one. The easiest way, it feels, well, the most common one, and the ones people say that is most beginner friendly, is what's called Scottish tension. Apparently it has nothing to do with Scotland, like most things that are called this or that. And it means that you have a break on the bobbin. You have something that slows, it's a piece of a rope that slows the bobbins down. And then you have the Irish tension, which slows the flyer down. And then you have some wheels that can do both, which is good. I know that there's a reason why you would want one more than the other, but I haven't looked into it too much, and I didn't understand well enough. But yeah, so both are Scottish tensions, so that's the same thing. And another good point for Kromsky for me was that, so I'm in France, right? And I plan to stay within the European realm, unless someone in New Zealand wants to adopt me, then sure. And Kromsky is in Poland. And the thing is, if I want to buy things from Ashford, they are shipped from New Zealand. And so it's okay. It's not that expensive either. But it's still a bit more long and a bit more like just the thought that if I just want to buy a bobbin, I have to get it from... Because there's no retailers in France that directly has Ashford stock. I couldn't find any, even in Europe. And so, yeah, the thing is, my thought process was like, okay, if I need something, if I need to fix the wheel, if I need bobbins, if I need more equipment, it's just more convenient to get the ones that's more local to me. Also, I do need to buy new bobbins, especially now. And also, the last thing was that the Kromsky Sonata comes lacquered, and there was no way for me to get the Kiwi 3 lacquered. It just comes in a natural finish, and you need to lacquer it yourself, which is, yes, it's not that big of a deal, but it's just still a pain. And the Kromsky Sonata also comes with a bag. When it's folded, you can put it in a backpack, and that's cool. So yeah, eventually I decided to go for the Sonata. It's my Christmas present for last year and my birthday present for this year, and the Christmas present for this year and the next birthday as well. But yeah, I got a wheel, and I'm really happy. So I received it on the 24th of December. Not my fault. I ordered it back in November, but it was marked in stock. But then I learned that in stock didn't mean in stock. And so I still had to wait and was like, oh God, no. And I wanted to avoid the holiday seasons for the business that was shipping to me and for the postal service. I didn't want them to be in that rush for the wheel. And so if that's a fail. And so I really I get along pretty well with my mailman, and it's just poor him. He brought my wheel on the 24th, and I was like, I am so sorry that you had to bring that huge package to me the day before Christmas and you must have so many packages to bring, and I'm so sorry. I gave him cookies to sort of apologize, but yeah, it's just I got it right on time. And so since then I've been spinning almost every day. Maybe I haven't spun like 2 or 3 days. I'm loving it. I'm really, really happy with it. So a bit of my spinning history. Like I said, I know how to spin for 5 years, and I know a lot about how in theory it works. Now maybe you've understood that about me, but that's kind of how I roll. It's how I learn things. A lot of people ask me, how did you learn this or that? Not a lot of people, but when someone asks me, how did you learn to spin? How did you learn to weave? How did you learn to knit, or this or that? I don't know what to answer, because I feel like you want me to say, well, I followed this class here, or I read this book that is going to explain to you everything. No, I sort of learn organically. I'm gonna see something, like I'm gonna see a blog post or an Instagram picture, and I'm gonna just completely obsess over the thing and learn everything before even figuring out if I want to try it myself. For example, bobbin lace. I think that's a good example of how my brain works. I was wandering on Etsy and I saw bobbins, and I didn't know what they were for. But I thought they looked cute, and it said bobbin lace in French. So I was like, what's that? And so I looked up bobbin lace, and I spent so many days reading websites and articles about bobbin lace and how it's made, and looking at the pattern. And there are some videos on YouTube of people who make bobbin lace, and they're like 2 hours long videos where you can see them making the pattern and making each movement of the bobbin lace. And I literally watched those videos completely, and a lot of them. And yeah, I just get really into learning about the thing and learning the technical aspects of it and historical aspects of it. And when there's some culture attached to it as well, I really like to learn a lot about this. And then I see if I want to try it. And I did try bobbin lace, by the way, and it's kind of cool. I don't know where my bobbins are. Yeah, I didn't make a few bookmarks. And it was fun. And that's how I learned to weave. That's how I learned to spin. I learned to knit a bit differently, because when I learned to knit, I had internet. Well, just the beginning of it. Not at home, and so it. I actually had to refer to some old magazines and stuff. I mostly learned by trying rather than digging into the theory. But since then, that's how I learn things. I just look it up, and I just look it up real deep. And yeah, I know not everyone functions like this. I don't think it's a generation issue, because my sister, who is much younger than I am, she doesn't work like this. She's not independent at all like this. Even though she did grow up fully with the internet, like when she was in primary school, we had internet, and she grew up with the social media and everything, and she's still not using them to their potential. She's always gonna ask me or our mother for things. For example, last time she wanted to know how to make lasagna, and just, why do you need to ask us? Just Google lasagna. You're gonna have the answer in 2 seconds. But no, she needed us to, like, she wouldn't, and it was not about transmitting a family secret. No, she just wanted, because literally what we did is like, let's just make lasagna. What we did is Google it and send it to her, because like she couldn't do it herself. Yeah, basically I told her, you're just gonna stay there in your kitchen and starve until we tell you how to do the thing. But yeah, it's I know people, like, they really feel reassured when they ask someone for advice, and I totally understand why when people ask me questions like this. I'm totally happy to help when I can. And yeah, sometimes I feel that sometimes it's because people think that the other person has some sort of secret knowledge, or that there's something, a clue that you're missing and you need someone to tell you that clue so that you can do like them. But most of the times, no. So yeah, how did I learn how to spin on the spindle? So I was weaving, and I was following the Unusual Pair, which is a shop. I think she's in New Zealand or in Australia, I'm not sure. And she makes weaving tools. She makes cute little tapestry looms. And I had some of her looms. And one day she developed a spindle, right? So I was following her shop and I saw that she was making this. And I was like, this is cute. What the hell is that? Well, I knew what the spindle was and thing, but I didn't have a spindle. I didn't know properly the thing. So I bought her spindle. I followed her little tutorial that came in a pamphlet with it, and I learned to spin like this. And so I went really deep into the theory of fibers, of twists, of things, of the different types of spindles that you can have, because you can have supported spindles, you can have there's the Romanian spindles as well, which they don't use, by the way, and there's the and then spinning wheels as well. I've been reading about spinning wheels, watching people talk about spinning on the wheel. There's a book that's called Respect the Spindle, which is specifically on spinning with a spindle. And it's a nice book. It talks a lot about the theory. And I did the same thing with the wheels. Like, I learned a lot and I didn't have a wheel. So yeah, that's kind of how I got the thing. And so it's quite funny. And that happens to me quite a lot because I know the theory, I know how things work, and then just need to practice, and that's a totally different thing, right? But yes, so I know how to spin on the spindle, so that was fine. I started spinning on the wheel once I got it. And so this was the first spin that I did. This was just some leftover merino that I had from when I was weaving with and stuff. And so my main focus with this one was just to get used to the threadling, find the right motion, the right tension, the right speed, etc. So it's not too consistent. It's still fairly decent. But yeah, there are two different ones because so I span the singles, into two different bobbins, and then I wanted to ply them. And I tried two different ply speed, because that's kind of my main problem, you'll see. This one is more loosely plied, and I don't like it too much. I found out that I really like things that are more tightly plied, so I did it with this one. This is a bit more tightly plied. It's a bit silly because I did the loose ply first, so I did it with the end of my singles. So my singles that were the best, the most consistent ones, I did the loose ply, which I don't like, and I did the tight ply with the very first single, so they're really loosey-goosey and things. But I can still see that I prefer a tight ply. So that was my getting used to it. Next, I spun these because my friend Deborah, which is Les Petites Potions, which is a yarn indie dyer, a French indie dyer, she ships worldwide. She dyes yarns and fibers, and she just sent. I asked her for something, and not secret, but you'll see. And she also kindly gifted me some leftover fibers that she had, and this is she thinks these were Kent Romney fiber wool. And so there were two colors. There were this brown, which I spun as a single, and as you can see, so my focus with this was to be as consistent as possible, and I'm really happy. So there was this more brown one and then an orange one, and then I plied them together. And it's still not as tightly plied as I would like, but it's still really good. I really loved spinning the Romney. It just felt a bit more like carded. It was still a top, right? I know I prefer to, so when you spin, you can have combed tops like this, which are like ribbons, or you can have bats, which are more like a fluffy thing. I know on a spindle, I do prefer to knit from to spin from tops, which is a bit apparently counterintuitive because it's supposed to be harder, but I know that's what I preferred. I do like bats as well, and they're really pretty and they're really fun. And this sort of was like a top, but the fibers were a bit fluffy, like in a bat, and so it just spins so easily. It was just really smooth and really consistent and really, really pleasant to spin with, the Romney. And so that was it. And how am I consistent? So it's something that you have to do when you're learning to spin on a spindle, because when you're on a spindle, you have to spin the thing, right? And then you have to sort of quickly grab your fiber and be like, okay, slightly trying to drag it and make it twist. So how you create yarn is you take the fiber, you pull it, and it just gets some twist, and eventually it makes yarn, right? And so yeah, when you're on a spindle, if you just take your fiber like this and you're learning, you have to spin with one hand, then go back up with both hands, and then do this. And at the same time, you have to make sure that the spindle doesn't stop spinning, or that spins like in a rather good way. And it's just really hard. So when you're learning on a spindle, you're kind of forced to pre-draft. And yes, I know a lot of people got wheels as well for Christmas, so it feels like we're a lot of people learning at the same time. And I see that a lot of people don't pre-draft. And yeah, it's just a thing that if you are struggling, maybe try it and see if that's something that you like. So, because what I did this far was that basically you separate a bit of your fiber, right? You separate a bit, and now that I'm more used to it, and then on the spindle, I can just take that and spin from that, and that's okay. But if I want to be particularly good, and if I want it easy, I'm just gonna fluff up the fiber like this. You know, you're basically spreading it around like this, and then you're gonna pre-pull it. So I'm just pulling it like this, elongating it. Basically, you're already separating the fibers, which is gonna make much more easier when you're gonna spin. You're gonna have that thing, and it's gonna spin so much easily. And especially if you're working with, so this is merino again, but especially if you're working with fibers that are a bit more difficult to draft, pre-draft it, because it's just gonna make life so much easier. That's why it's also good to spin with things like Plotulopi or the Nutiden yarn, you know, the unspun pencil roving. That's really good for practice because it's already in the right shape and you don't have to draft at the same time as you're spinning if that's not something that you're comfortable doing. So until then, that's what I was doing, like really diligently pre-drafting. And I did this, which is a sample from Shankly's, which is a dyer from the UK. And I got a bunch of yarn from her. She really makes pretty colorways, and she also has, I say she because I think her name is Joni, I'm gonna say. I should say. They also have like different fibers types. So they have like Corriedale, Gotland, etc. And that's something I'm really interested in. So I bought a few things from her, and I had this as a gift, as a sample. And it's a merino nylon blend with Stellina, I think. I don't know, because it's multicolor. Firestar, maybe. Anyway. And so, when I did the single for this, I wanted to be as thin and consistent as possible. And then I wanted to try a chain ply. So chain, or sometimes they call it Navarro ply. I'm not sure if that's a correct term. Sometimes in fiber arts, people use terms from the South America, and it's actually not the proper things. So it's a chain ply basically. I really like chain plying. I always did. It's a really twisty round thing, and it has a really fun texture, I find. Basically what you do is you have your single, right? You make a loop, and then you're gonna make like a crochet chain. So you take the yarn from here, and then you make a loop, and etc. And you make a loop like this. And so it makes a 3-ply, right? But it makes a chain, and so it's a really fun texture, and I really like it. It's not the best plying method to do when you're a beginner, because since you're plying the single onto itself, if it's too thin, then it's going to be really too thin. Whereas if you have 2 singles and you mix them together, maybe they're going to balance each other. But I do really like chain plying, so I wanted to try it and see where I'm at. So I have this as a reference and see if I can do better in a few months or a year or so. And so with this, it became apparent what my difficulty is and what I need to focus on. So my thing is plying. So I'm okay with being consistent if I focus, which is not a given. If I focus, I'm consistent enough. But it's about plying and having a consistent torsion in when I ply. Often when people start spinning, they're told that you should be careful not to over twist your yarn. When I was learning with the spindle, that was not my problem. With the spindle, my yarn was not twisted enough, and that's way worse. I'd much rather have a overly twisty yarn than a yarn that's not twisted enough, because if it's not twisted enough, it's just not yarn and it breaks. But with this, I sort of could sense that in some places, the irregularity of the twist made my plying a bit more difficult. So if I can find it, basically there are spots in the yarn where the like here, see this? Basically this is a spot where the single just twisted itself and it didn't get into the ply flat. And that happened quite a bit there. And that's because I wasn't regular with my speed and with how much yarn I was allowing to go into the wheel, because when you're plying, it goes a bit faster. And so, yeah, that is the thing I need to work on, I feel. But it's still pretty good and really pretty. After that, I wanted to play a little bit. I told you I've spun a lot. I wanted to play a little bit with the fibers, because I do have a stash of fibers that I was using for weaving, etc. And I wanted to blend my own thing, because I'm really into dark, moody colors, and it's not something that is very common. Dyers, when they dye fiber, sometimes they go for very bright or pastel pinks, etc. And it's really pretty, but I'm in the mood for some dark plum things, teal colors, more like black and stuff. And this was perfect. And so after that, I wanted something dark. So what I did is that I took some merino that I had that was black, burgundy and grey, and I mixed it together with some teal colored silk, the green one that you can see. I mixed it because I have a blending board, which is basically, well, I made it myself. I bought some cardigan cloth. So it's a piece of cloth that has a lot of little dents, and that's how you brush the fiber, okay? So that's the carding machines in the mills, etc. And you can buy small things that can do it for you. And I just bought the actual thing with the dents, and I stuck it onto a piece of wood, and tada, I have a blending board. And so I did it myself. So it was not very well blended, and this just showed me how important the fiber prep was, because it was not very well blended, especially with the silk, which is a long, hard thing to spin. I noticed it on the spindle as well. Spinning silk is very different. It's at the same time it's difficult because it's long, and on the other hand, once it's set, it just won't budge. So yeah, it's kind of a thing. So here I didn't want to try and blend them together too much because I didn't want to lose the color variation, and so that meant that it was a bit hard to spin regularly, so it's a bit thick and thin, but it's still quite pretty. This has not been washed. Yes, so when you finish spinning, you need to wash the yarn so it plumps up, etc. And then you sort of need to release the tension. And so I've seen, like, you can do different ways. A really fun way is you just take, so you do like you would block a knit. Basically, you press some of the water out, and then with your skin is still wet, you can whack it against the floor or wall or the bathtub or whatever, and you look kind of crazy, but it's really fun. What I like to do is I actually do this. I do this all around the skein, basically. Basically what this does is, if you have some irregularities in your tension, if I understood properly, it just relaxes it a bit. And then I let it hang to dry, and I put a weight on the bottom. So that's it. That's how you finish the skein. What else? After that, which is really pretty, I need to wash it. So the thing that I'm currently spinning is what I showed you here. This is some merino. Maybe it has nylon in it. I'm not sure. I bought this so long ago. This is from Heavenly Wools. I think they were from New Zealand as well. And they're I bought them on Etsy. And so I had it left over. I didn't have the full braid. And I already spun a bobbin, and so I lost the end. I can't find it anymore. So I tried to pull it to sort of find it again, but I can't see it. I'm gonna have to... this is gonna be a pain. Oh, no, that's not it. Oh my god. It's gonna be really difficult. And so, yeah, I try to be as fine as possible with this one. I'm pretty consistent. I'm happy. It's alright. I just need to find the end of it. I should have been more careful and let it visible. That's stupid. So I need to spin the other bobbin and ply them together, and I'm gonna really try to have a good twist, like a good ply, so that they're really, really well plied together. Yeah, that's maybe the thing I'm less comfortable with, because there's much more leverage. There's so much things that you can do, so many things that you can do with the spinning wheel. Like I said, there's the two tension systems. You can actually have both systems. I don't really know. I didn't know if I said it. I don't really know. There's a reason why you would use Irish tension rather than Scots, and I didn't understand well enough. And there's this that I'm still missing information about and still need to find out and figure it out how it works. And also the plying really is something that kind of puzzles me, because you need to change the ratio quite significantly, and I'm really tempted to go as fast as possible to see what I can do. So maybe I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna go on the smallest ratio for this ply and see if maybe that's my solution. So yes, in the end I wasn't that much shorter than in the French episode, but a little bit. I think I said everything about my spinning introduction, and I tried to share as much as the things that I've learned as possible. So yeah, it's a learning curve. like, I think you saw that I know a lot of the theory, and I find it so interesting. Like, I don't know everything about the theory either, but I find it interesting how it compares when you're actually doing the thing, and how it sort of sometimes makes sense, sometimes doesn't make sense because you're missing things, or just because you need to adapt to you as well. Because there's the theory, and then there's actually knowing how to do the thing. And some of the most experienced and talented spinners I know, they're very organic in the way that they talk about their spinning, and they're not overly sharing technical details and everything, and it's just about feeling it right. And so that's transitioning from the more maybe intellectual knowledge to the actual knowing how to do stuff. That is, I found fascinating, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving it so much. It's really relaxing. For example, I had my cold, and for a couple of days, like, it's not that I had a headache, but I couldn't knit. I couldn't stay focused on my knitting, and I was just so distracted and a bit like messy brain and agitated. And so at some point I decided, okay, give up the knitting, it's just not working. And so I said, maybe I can spin. And yes, I could. It just flows, and it's really nice, and I'm really loving it. I'm really loving learning new things, and comparing it and using all the different tools that you can have, and it's just lovely. I'm really interested, as you can guess, by trying out different fibers. I have some combed Gotland that I'm saving for when I'll be good enough, because Gotland is a long thing. It's already difficult to spin on the mill with the machine, so I'm not even trying to understand how I'm going to be able to do it by hand. But I'm waiting to be comfortable, trying out different things, and I'm loving it so far. So I will keep sharing some of my spinning progress with you. You might see quite a lot of it from now. I always try to put the other crafts at the end of the episodes, so that way people who are not that interested can skip. And I think that's about it. I will see you next week again for the last of the recap. In the meantime, have a lovely rest of the day, have a lovely evening, whichever applies, and I will see you next time. Bye!